everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey! We're back at it to have some fun talking about all the stuff going on in the world of geekdom. And certainly we had a big breaking news happening today with Sadie Sink in Spider-Man 4. Who is she playing? We'll talk about all of that here on the show as well. We'll talk about the new trailers. We have some Superman WB news that's a little shaky, so we'll have a conversation about that and get into our spoiler review for episode 3 of Daredevil Born Again. But first, let's introduce ourselves with people who may be discovering the Geek Buddies, and we find new people every week. So I am John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you can see me right now, at least until tomorrow, on the latest episode of The Pit. There's a new episode of The Pit tomorrow. And if you have the world's largest magnifying glass or a very big TV, you can see me in a new commercial for Progressive.
How about your... Never mind. All right. I'll we'll figure it out. Anything else?
Go on.
I feel like you're not on your mic again, but that's me. Anyway, all right.
Really?
Yeah. Let's jump into things. So thank you very much for your introductions. We are the Geek Buddies. We're excited to dive into this stuff, but we got to jump off the bat right now. I guess, we'll do this. This is it. Sadie Sink. This broke this morning from Boris Kitt over at Deadline, with production set to start later this year on the next installment in the Spider-Man franchise. Series star Tom Holland looks to have found a new co-star who is, quote, no stranger to popular IP. Hello. Sadie Sink is set to join the sequel here from Sony Pictures and Marvel Studios. Destin Daniel Cretton is still directing, with Amy Pascal and Feige producing. As for who Sink will be playing, the prevailing theory is that she might be Jean Grey. I know that Jeff Snyder broke that on our Hot Mic and on his newsletter, but of course, other people are speculating already that she could be MJ, that she could be Black Cat, that she could be even Firestar, which would be an interesting situation. But Michael, I go to you first. A, do you like this casting? And B, where's your head spinning of who she could be playing?
I do like this casting for Gwen Stacy.
Oh, Gwen Stacy. The blonde Gwen Stacy. Okay.
Yes, as in Bryce Dallas Howard and Emma Stone, the other two redheads who both played Gwen Stacy.
I don't know what color Bryce Dallas Howard's hair is right now, but yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Well,
yes.
Canonically, according to her photos, it's red.
Good points.
Yeah, look, yes, I think she's great. So I think casting her in any of these roles would be awesome. But let's just go through the list here. It's like, we have an MJ. I know she's got red hair, but we have an MJ in this universe. We have a character who is Peter's MJ, who he currently said goodbye to and has forgotten about him at the end of No Way Home. So in No Way Home, they had oh, this is your MJ. Oh yeah, my MJ. Like that's who MJ is. So adding another Mary Jane Watson to the story, even though her name's a little bit different, and they changed it, I think that just seems silly and a little bit confusing. Jean Grey, yes, she was definitely in the running for Jean Grey. There was definitely talks about her being Jean Grey. I think she would have made a great Jean Grey. We have been talking about mutants getting introduced in other movies since Storm was absolutely for sure going to be introduced in Wakanda Forever. I think the X-Men are coming when the X-Men are coming. They're not going to sprinkle them in here. And if Jean Grey were to show up in a Spider-Man movie, I don't think she's showing up in some co-star level role. So I don't think you all of a sudden have Jean Grey show up. Firestar, look, I grew up on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I would love to see Firestar, but again, Firestar now falls under the mutant category, and I just think that's not quite the vibe. Whereas when last we left Peter Parker, he had to say goodbye to all of his friends, including the girl that he loved. He is now on his own, figuring things out. It makes sense that he would have a new person that comes into his life that he rescues or finds in some way, and this person becomes a love interest of him, creating a love triangle, which, what is the classic Spider-Man love triangle? Peter Parker, MJ, and Gwen Stacy. So that combined with the fact that every Gwen Stacy in a Spider-Man movie was a redhead in real life and then they dyed her hair blonde leads me to believe that this is probably Gwen Stacy.
There's some interesting detective work from Detective Vogel there. Shannon, your thoughts on this? Do you agree with Michael, or do you think is your mind a little more open to see where she might be where she might be cast as?
Well, I mean, it's hard to separate her from the Jean Grey role because of all of the talk and all of the rumors that had been building up to this point. And if Jean Grey were going to be introduced in a Spider-Man movie, like I don't know what that movie is, but I'm certainly interested. I mean, would Sadie Sink be a great Gwen Stacy? Absolutely. I mean, just look at her work in Stranger Things. Look at how many things she has on the horizon. This is clearly a talented young performer who people want to utilize to the best of her capabilities. Would she be a great Gwen Stacy? Yeah. Do I think her as Jean Grey is a little bit more of an exciting choice? Yes. And knowing how much that Spider-Man movie has changed, like the last time we heard about it, that we heard from a fairly reliable source, like, nope, it's going to be Spider-Man, the Hulk, and the Punisher, which is such a kind of random, like, let's grab this. Who's to say that they haven't traded that out for Jean Grey? I mean, ultimately, none of us know. Will she be great in either role? Yes. But again, it's difficult for me to separate her and Jean Grey just because of how much I've already kind of associated there with it in my head.
Yeah. First of all, I like the casting. Sadie's a really up and coming, strong actress. She's about to be in another play on stage to show what she can do. I think she has a musical that's coming out, post-apocalyptic musical on Hulu that's coming out. So, like, this is a woman of many talents and a growing, and she's also has a growing social media presence, like a very strong voice there on social media. So there's a lot of boxes that Sadie Sink checks overall, because this is a new world. This isn't when actresses were coming up 20 years ago. This is a different world now. You know, having multiple revenue streams, being a part of all these things, it's an important thing in selling yourself, especially at a young age, to these companies that want to use you in multiple films. I hear you about Gwen Stacy. I wonder where they would go with that. To me, I hit with the Spider-Man film is rumored to be hitting between the two Avengers movies. So is this a ground-based Spider-Man film, or is this a film that's going to start ground-based and go to Battle World? Where are we going? This could be an MJ from another universe. And if we're getting Tony Stark coming back, or Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Dr. Doom, I don't think anything could be more confusing than that. So if you can overcome that by coming in with Sadie Sink as MJ, that could be interesting. But Michael, you make a good point on this idea of, well, he's going to, MJ is not going to remember him anymore, and seeing him spend 2 hours trying to get her to fall in love with him again, like Peter Quill did with the other Gamora, I don't think would be an interesting film. What's more interesting is you bring in a new love interest, possibly. He's in college now, I think. So this could work in some interesting ways. And she could still be Jean Grey, possibly, if they're going to introduce them step by step throughout. The rumors are that X-Men is coming out after the second Avengers film, the Secret Wars film, quickly afterwards. So you would want to see them at some point if they're going to be introduced that quickly after Secret Wars. Would Secret Wars be the introduction, or would it be a slow kind of leaking introduction to where they become a team by the end? I don't know. But either way, I like this. I don't see the Firestar thing. I think I'm in your camp with that, Michael. I don't see the Black Cat thing. Gwen Stacy's the possibility, and Jean Grey. Those are the two that I fall into. But an alternate universe MJ could be interesting if they made it work.
Sure. I just think
why are you you seem so against this possibility?
It's not that I'm against. I'm happy she's in the movie. If all of a sudden the trailer comes out and she pops up and says, "Hi, my name is Jean," I'm not going to be pissed off about it. It's just sort of it's more of like what happens on Twitter. Like, this is the new multiverse of madness. This is the new Tom Cruise is coming in as Iron Man, and like this and that, and Henry Cavill's doing this. It's like the internet goes insane, and it's sort of like it's like Occam's Razor, the casting edition. Like, Occam's Razor, the simplest answer is usually the right one. So is it, we're going to bring Firestar in, it's an MJ from an alternate universe, we're going to slowly introduce the X-Men, and this is where Jean Grey pops up? Or are we going to build the classic Spider-Man love triangle that has existed since the 1960s? And you're like, yeah, that's probably what they're doing. Like,
but how can it be a love triangle if she doesn't even remember who the hell he is?
That's what makes it interesting. To your point of what you were saying is, all Peter Parker really wants is to have his friends back. He made this spell. It is what it is.
Yeah.
He went there at the very end. He saw MJ, the cut on MJ's head. He was like, fuck, her life is better off without me in it. So he's going to be living his life. He's going to be doing his things. 90% of the chance he still checks on MJ. He still checks on Ned. He wishes he could be friends with them. Maybe he's like started to form a friendship with her, but all of a sudden this new woman comes into his life and he's like, oh, she gets me in a way that I really love this. I have something. Maybe she works at the Daily Bugle and he gets a job at the Daily Bugle. So now all of a sudden he's got this girl, and then what happens if the spell breaks? What happens if this goes on? Like, you could have an entire movie where he falls in love with Sadie Sink, and then either at the end of the movie or post Battle World, or once we get past Secret Wars, the spell is somehow lifted. MJ remembers, and now Peter Parker's got two women in his life. Oh fuck, what is he gonna do? Like, the permutations of the MJ, Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker love triangle have been through so many iterations that I am more than confident that they can crack it. But I mean, I think that is the most obvious answer. So yes, you're right. I'm not being grumpy about the other options. I know I sound like I'm being grumpy, but no, it's more like whenever anybody starts going on they're going to introduce the X-Men in these movies. Like, we have literally been hearing that Marvel was going to slowly introduce the X-Men for like a decade, and they haven't done it. Like, the internet sort of gets rolling with these rumors, and you just watch them take on a life of their own. And then when the movie comes out and the trailer comes out and we realize that Sadie Sink is not Jean Grey, everyone sort of gets pissed at Marvel. Like, why didn't you do the thing that I assumed you were going to do because the internet said it was going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, they have been slowly introducing the X-Men, just maybe not the X-Men that we're going to see in the Mutant Saga. Like, we saw Patrick Stewart come back for Multiverse of Madness. We saw Kelsey Grammer come back for the end of the Marvels. So they have been doing it. Maybe just not in the way that we expected them to.
Fair, but those are back aside from Kamala Khan, who is the only person in the MCU who has been specifically called a mutant. What they have been doing, and I think this sort of gets to the Sadie Sink thing of it all as well, they have not been introducing a new young cast of characters who are mutants. What they have very specifically done, and I think this is why I don't think this is going to be Jean Grey, they have very specifically been taking people from the 20th Century Fox universe and peppering them here and there in the multiverse. So what that leads me to believe, and what a lot of the rumors out there are, is it's not that we're going to get to Secret Wars and this new young cast of X-Men are going to help the Avengers save the day. I think we're going to see Fox characters. I think we're going to see Deadpool. I think we're going to see Beast. I think we're going to see Magneto. I think we're going to see the Fox characters from their part of the multiverse show up, and that will be their second big send-off after their lovely send-off at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine. And then when we get to the sort of soft reboot post-Secret Wars, we're going to be living in an MCU where there are mutants, and then we're going to meet all of this young cast that are being rumored. Then we're going to meet, it's no longer Kelsey Grammer, it's no longer Patrick Stewart, it's going to be these younger characters. That's what my money's on. Because otherwise you start to get, oh, here's a new Jean Grey, but here's Kelsey Grammer, but here's this. It's like, it gets very messy.
But they're already doing that by keeping Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, aren't they? Like, by keeping him as Wolverine in a way till he's 90.
Again, rumored. We don't know that they are doing that. That is what is rumored.
Okay. All right. Well, real quick, last week, Jeff broke the possibility that Jesse Plemons could be playing Beast. Do you guys like that idea?
Love it.
Yes. I think that is brilliant casting.
Yeah,
Jesse Plemons can literally play anything, and I'm pretty much good with it.
Yeah. I mean, if Sadie Sink is Jean Grey and Dickerson is Scott Summers and maybe someone older is playing Storm, and Plemons can play like the older brother. He's kind of like the older brother Beast, right? Kind of schooling them, training them. So I like that idea as well. So it's interesting. I just, you get kind of like, let's get the casting going. Let's get excited.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, it is. Everyone just wants. We have been wanting X-Men since before it was possible for us to have X-Men in the Marvel Universe. Like, we all want it. I understand the excitement. I understand the desire to want to just like go to the movies and be like, oh, there it is. But yeah, I think we are in for a multiversal collapse with the 20th Century Fox universe that Monica Rambeau is going to play a role in. And then and the Illuminati are apparently in the mix, according to Julius Ona, as what originally they were going to be in Brave New World. And then we're going to get our new X-Men after we get Secret Wars.
Yeah. Shannon, any final words on this?
No, I mean, at first I was just thinking, do we want to make her Gwen Stacy, knowing that Tom Holland probably only has a trilogy left of Spider-Man movies, and then he's going to pass the web shooters on probably to Miles. It's like, I don't know, does Gwen Stacy exist in a world without Peter Parker? And it's like, well, Spider-Verse, she becomes Spider-Gwen, and that you can certainly have another web slinger out there.
That's what I was going to ask. Are they low-key backdooring Spider-Gwen into this situation by having her play Gwen Stacy? Because I don't know that Sadie Sink, as she is on the ascendancy, is like, yeah, let me play the love interest who gets her neck snapped. That sounds awesome. Or let me play Spider-Gwen down the road. I know what's her face voices it in the Spider-Verse, Haley Steinfeld. But it doesn't seem like that's the route they're going to go, and she'd be around the age to be an interesting Spider-Gwen. So could she be the multiverse Gwen Stacy that becomes Spider-Gwen? Would you be upset about that?
I'm not upset about anything
because I'm not upset. That was the voice.
I'm not upset about anything. I'm just saying this is what I think. No, I don't know that they. I mean, there's only it'll be interesting to see how big they go in the Spider world. Definitely, I think everybody would love to see a live action Miles Morales in the MCU. I don't know or Sony's going to go try and do their own. But I think Spider-Gwen is, thanks to the Spider-Verse movies, thanks to Spidey and his amazing friends on Disney Junior, she's very popular. So, and I think you make a good point about Sadie Sink maybe wanting, if she's going to step into the MCU, she wants a bigger role than just Gwen Stacy. So I think that there's definitely possibilities there for sure.
Yeah. If she's going to go blonde for the big role. I like that idea. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with that as it goes on, but we're excited. This is a good casting, good actress to bring into this. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to see what she ends up being, and then we can deal with that when that happens. Let's move on to the other story. Do you want me to pitch this one up or set this one up? Am I doing this one as well, the Superman one? Shall I do it, or what's going on here?
Hey, go for it.
Yeah, okay, fine. So here it is. Let's talk about this. There's a lot of reports coming out this week from Puck News talking about what's going on with Warner Brothers. And of course, right now they're dealing with a little bit of a not great, but certainly not terrible opening for Mickey 17. And Superman, there have been some conflicting reports on test screenings, with some people liking them, a couple of people not liking it, some people comparing it to Captain America First Avenger, some people saying it's good, but it's not the best of James Gunn. So there's a lot of reports out there. But this new report from Puck News details the high expectations from Warner Brothers for James Gunn's new Superman movie. According to the report from Puck, the word that's Matthew Baloney over there, that the movie is, quote, now taken an almost incalculable importance to Warner Brothers Discovery. If Warner's can't finally make the DC franchise work, there is genuine fear that the studio will go the way of Fox, which was swallowed by Disney in 2019. And certainly Abdi and DeLuca are on the chopping block, according to this report, possibly, if Superman doesn't do well. And there's 2 or 3 other films coming out later on this year from Warner Brothers, including Sinners from Ryan Coogler, there's rumors that there's trouble behind the scenes on those as well. There's conversations being had about how much is being spent on these movies. And even today, a new report came out that Bong Joon-ho rejected the Warner Brothers cut for his movie, which was testing better, and forced them to put out his cut of the movie, which is not doing quite as well at the box office. So, Shannon, you hear all this. Is any of this surprising to you? And what do you think about this? If this film doesn't come off, are we looking at a Warner Brothers fire sale and starting this whole thing all over again?
I mean, that was something that we had talked about way back when. It's like, okay, we're getting this new big slate of DC movies. It's a brand new universe. But what if one of them doesn't do well? Again, it's the whole idea that the first one out the gate, there's so much riding on it that if it doesn't perform, and again, I think Superman's going to make money. It's going to make money. Is it going to be the level of hit that they need it to be to potentially keep a studio afloat? I don't know. I'm not an economist. When you look at kind of the history that we grew up in, like in the 80s, studios going out of business, that was something you heard about in the 60s, like how Cleopatra almost bankrupted a studio. Now we've gotten into this time that 20th Century Fox, like one of the great old studios, got bought. Like Disney bought it. Like I never thought that was going to happen. And so the idea that Warner Brothers is in such a state that potentially, like Comcast, who owns Universal, that they could potentially be a suitor if if they don't right the ship. And you hear all these stories about Zaslav and like the whole reason he was brought in. I mean, or being the chairman of Discovery, he was trying to make them look attractive for a sale, and win / if that sale happens, he still gets to be with Discovery. He still gets to head that ship. It's so not fun, this type of talk, because again, 20th Century Fox, has it gone away? Kinda. I mean, is it still out, the 20th Century Studios? Yes, but it's not the studio that it once was. It is now under that Disney umbrella. And I think losing another studio, especially a big historic studio like Warner Brothers, which wouldn't go away completely, like that WB logo, it would still exist, just in a different way. It's really unfortunate, because again, there's just so much history tied to it. I used to live in Burbank, right down the street from Warner Brothers. I walked past there. I've worked on multiple shows there. So knowing that might not exist in the way that it's existed, it is kind of a bummer. For James Gunn, you want to talk about pressure. Like there was already pressure to get this thing right. And now you add what, as you put, Johnny, from the article, this incalculable risk or reward. But this movie has to work. And the whole idea that maybe we'll see this DC universe take off, knowing that, okay, we've got 2 movies in production, one that's basically done, another in production, 2 that are supposed to start shooting. So of the things that they announced, we haven't seen probably a quarter of it yet. And to know that it could potentially end before it really gets started, that's a bummer. So hopefully it's a great movie.
Your thoughts on all this, Michael?
The biggest flaw in this entire discussion is the idea that if Superman doesn't work, the DC universe has failed. Now, I think that is what Warner Brothers is thinking. I do think that's what Zaslav is thinking. I think that everything that Shannon said about the pressure that's on Gunn and Safran is true, but the problem is this idea that if Superman isn't a billion-dollar hit and everybody thinks it's the greatest thing ever, the DC universe has died. Warner Brothers' problem is they don't have the patience. And Marvel suffers a little bit from this problem now, but what Marvel did that made it work is they stuck with, like, it's hard to conceive of now in the world that we live in, where every movie we get excited and then we're disappointed or whatever. Iron Man was great, but Iron Man is a small fucking movie.
Yeah,
Iron Man is a small movie. It's a small movie with a really shitty third act battle that mostly takes place in the dark. Thor is not a great movie. I love it. Chris Hemsworth was great casting, but Thor was not the greatest superhero movie we've ever seen. And Captain America, which is probably my favorite out of the 3, most people thought was real cheesy, and the third act is really kind of a mess. Like, the first 3 movies out of the gate for Marvel, Iron Man was by far the biggest hit, and then people were excited about this idea of the Avengers and whatever, but like when you look back, none of those movies, not Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man, did not have the pressure on them. What?
Don't leave out Hulk. That's part of the force.
I'm leaving out Hulk because it wasn't. Hulk was Universal. Hulk was Universal. So it was like, yes, it is tangentially a part of everything, but given that everybody except, well, no, that's not true. We did have the leader and Liv Tyler. So sure. But like even the Hulk, like, are any of the 4 of those movies, Iron Man probably out of the 4, you're going to go, well, that's definitely like a great superhero movie. But compared to some of the superhero movies we've gotten since then, it's good. It's solid. It's fun. But like, if Superman comes out and it's not great, the DC universe can still work. Like you take your hits, you keep going. You have to commit to it. I would even go I'm glad that we did not go all the way into Zack Snyder's post-apocalyptic Batman with his little hat on and the whole idea he had for his Snyderverse. But I do think DC could have, there's a universe where they could have shifted without saying we're starting over. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Now
because they overreacted after Man of Steel, as you said.
They overreacted they overreacted after Man of Steel and said they didn't overreact after Man of Steel. They just weren't patient. They said, you know what?
Yeah.
We don't want to wait. Let's do Batman versus Superman. And by the way, let's introduce the rest of the Justice League in there on a hard drive. And then let's get to the Justice League. And so like they weren't patient. And then when Batman versus Superman was not what most audiences, all y'all don't come for me, what the box office was not there that they wanted it to be, they flipped out. Then Joss Whedon came. Like, you can just look at how they were not patient and they didn't go, okay, look, what do we like? What works about this? And then it went all over the place and it got crazy. And now it's like, we're going crazy before the movies even come out. Like, let Superman come out. Let it be what it's going to be. If audiences think it's a little too cheesy, adjust. If audiences think that Superman is a little bit too earnest, adjust. Like, you make adjustments. And although Superman is Superman, you've got Lanterns coming out. Like, you ostensibly have a Batman movie coming out at some point. You've got Supergirl coming out. Like, let these things come out. And no, like, the key to building a universe is not to go, wow, this movie didn't deliver. Let's sell the studio. The key to building a universe is to let the universe grow. And look, to be completely pragmatic about it, that might mean, no, you don't get $300 million for your next 3 movies. That might mean you got to make some shit work on HBO Max and you got to do some smaller movies. You got to give me a couple small wins to get to your next big movie. So there are, like, price tags attached to failure, and you do need to rethink things. But this whole concept of all the pressure on this one movie to keep a studio, like, Superman is the best of all the superheroes, but I don't know that he even can handle the pressure of having his one movie have to save the entire studio of Warner Brothers.
Yeah, it's a situation where you're looking at a lot of factors that James Gunn had nothing to do with, right? I mean, he had nothing to do with the state of Warner Brothers Discovery and the mergers and all the stuff that's happened there, the renaming of Max, or now it's HBO and Max. Like, there's nothing to do with that. But there are decisions that have been made here that have affected him, and he's going to, in a way, be put his feet into the fire because of how, depending on how Superman does, because of how Zaslav has set this whole thing up. A lot of people have speculated, and some people have said that they've heard from sources within Warner Bros. that are close to Zaslav, that what he wanted to do was to eventually sell Warner Brothers and just take Discovery for himself eventually down the road, which is where he had come from. So is that the whole goal of this whole situation? You want to sell it at its highest peak, so you want everything to do well. But recently, I mean, even Joker 2 bombing, all these things affect him down the road. And now there's the report in Puck saying that Abdi and DeLuca might be moved out, and Safran is moved up into that position, leaving James Gunn as the solo head of the DC arm of things. And that, I think that could spell disaster on so many levels. And I hope that's not what happens in this situation. But there is pressure on this film. There is pressure for this film to perform. And I think because it's different. Like Marvel, I think if Marvel had their way, they would have started with Spider-Man if they had Spider-Man as their starting point, as the most popular, arguably the most popular Marvel character. Iron Man isn't the most popular Marvel character, but they made it work. Then they brought the Hulk in. Then they brought the Captain America, Thor. So you're right, Mike. They put the building blocks in with mostly good but not great movies, and then eventually built out from there. But WB, I think, is top heavy, so leading with Superman. So I think the mistake here is if Superman doesn't do well, what you have is a bunch of smaller movies. Supergirl, The Authority, if that ever gets off the ground. We don't know what the situation with Batman is. And then Lanterns. So these are not strong. You're not going Superman to Batman to Wonder Woman. And so I think there's where there's a little bit of a tough situation. If Superman isn't going to do well, you don't have these stronger characters to come in and be like, well, look, like Wonder Woman did with Gal Gadot. That came in and people had hope for the DCEU after that movie. Like, oh, maybe they can write the ship. Maybe they can do better. But it was fool's gold in the end. So they don't have someone coming up behind Superman at that level that's going to get people excited for more. So I think that's another reason why there's a lot of pressure. And look, that's where James Gunn does have to take some blame or does have to take some responsibility, because he has constructed it this way. And so therefore, however it plays out, he is the person responsible for whether it succeeds or fails because of the planning.
Yeah,
What
and
about
I
you,
think
Sharon?
when you look, well, I think when you look at the former regime, or not former, they're still the current, they potentially former regime,
Yeah.
with Abdi and DeLuca. Look at the mistakes that they made in
A
hindsight.
lot.
When
Yeah.
you with Joker 2, like they didn't do test screenings, they let it premiere at Cannes,
Mhm.
and it was a bloated budget.
Yeah. $200 million.
Any other studio executive would have made that same decision, coming off of a Best Picture,
Right.
award-nominated billion-dollar movie.
Right.
They would have done the same thing. I mean, there's been kind of a string of bad luck. Like the pressure that, again, according to the article, that they're apparently putting on Sinners. I'm like, that movie couldn't have cost that much. I mean, it's crazy to think that they're putting, again, it being mentioned in the same breath as something like Superman, as something like Mickey 17. I'm like, the movie looks great. It looks really great, but also that's not on the level of these other huge effects driven
Right.
films.
But even
No,
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, even Mickey 17, it's like, so you're a studio executive and Academy Award winner Bong Joon-ho wants to make a sci-fi movie based on a book starring Robert Pattinson, Mark Ruffalo, and Toni Collette. Where's the error in judgment there?
Giving them $130 million to do it. That's the error in judgment. I mean, the fact that Mickey 17's opening was the biggest opening he's ever had tells you that he can do just fine with a small budget. Like, people enjoy his movies with a small to medium budget. I don't understand spending $130 million on it, or $100 million on Sinner, or from what I read in the article, The Bride, the Maggie Gyllenhaal film. Why are you giving her $100 million to do The Bride, which is getting some bad reactions in test screening? So at some point, it isn't about luck, Shannon. I think it's about decisions, that you're giving this much money to these directors, and the product that's coming through is not good because of the high budget. You expect them to make this much money, but if you give them a lower budget, you can take the hits, I think, a little bit better than if you give them high budgets.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with Coogler, I'm like, he's got a proven track record.
Right, you gamble with Coogler. I don't doubt that. I don't question that for sure. But I mean, why are you giving Maggie Gyllenhaal $100 million for a musical about the Bride of Frankenstein that's set in multiple eras?
Listen, y'all. I was talking about Bong Joon-ho over here. Like, leave me alone on the Maggie Gyllenhaal front. I didn't touch that one. I didn't greenlight that.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think, well, real quick, Shannon, before we leave, what do you feel about it? Do you think if Peter Sarsgaard and Michael, I don't know if you chimed in on this, if Peter Sarsgaard moves in that position, what's the danger of leaving James Gunn alone in charge of DC?
I mean, if Peter Sarsgaard goes from actor to studio head, that's a huge.
I was gonna say, Peter Sarsgaard taking over the studio is a choice.
I'm sorry.
From the bomb of Green Lantern to the head of the studio, he's like, you know what? Now I'm calling the shots.
Look at me, Mom.
Like, if Safran goes and becomes the head of WB Films, I mean, they very publicly said that for DC, Safran is the business head, Gunn is the creative. They're not going to they're not going to make Gunn take over the business side himself. Like, there would be someone that they would put in that place. What I do think could be interesting, again, not really knowing a ton about their partnership other than what we've read about, is someone comes in as the executive, and you would assume Gunn would have approval, Safran would have approval. Is the power dynamic between the two of them the same as the power dynamic between him and Gunn now, between Gunn and Safran now? Like, will it be sort of Gunn's just like, hey, you're on my block, you got to listen to what I say? So, and again, this could all be smoke. I mean, Safran may not be going anywhere. But at the end of the day, Gunn's not going to have to shoulder the business side. Like, someone's going to fill that role.
Mike, what do you think about this, real quick?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I think it's a lot of
What ifs?
it's just a lot of people freaking out over something that hasn't happened yet. Is what it really is. It's like, so do I like, yes, I don't think James Gunn should run things by himself. So somebody would have to go in there if that were the case. But is that the case? Or is he gonna like is Zaslav gonna go find somebody else to do it? Is everybody gonna be out? Are they not gonna be out? Like, this is like a bunch of fire before we even see any smoke. And I'm like, let's just like wait for the goddamn movie to come out and see how it is. Like, I mean, look, and like maybe it comes out and we all universally go, wow, that is not a universe that I want any part of.
Yeah.
Like maybe we all resoundingly go, well, they tried it again. I guess we're going to have to wait a decade or so and then maybe we'll figure this out. And maybe that's what's going to happen. But I think the likelihood is the movie's going to come out. And a lot of people are going to love it and think it's the greatest thing in the world. And a lot of people are going to not like it because it's not Zack Snyder and it's not Man of Steel. And then there's going to be a lot of people who are in the middle. And if middle America, if people who don't have these conversations every single week go see the movie and it makes money, then great. Everyone's going to be fine. Nobody's getting fired. Let's just all keep moving. And then we'll see where it goes from there. And then we can jump back over to the giant Batman problem they have and why there's no Wonder Woman movie. And then we'll have those discussions.
That's my concern. Because I think if James Gunn moves up to the head of the studio, we're done with the Batman Part 2. I'm just telling you that right now. Okay, let's move on to some trailers. Shannon, what do you got for us?
We got some trailers. The first one dropped just today as we were recording this, and this was I don't know if it's the final trailer, but it is the latest trailer for the live-action interpretation of Disney's Lilo and Stitch. So as someone who has not been a huge fan of most of these live-action adaptations, I put nothing on this. I thought some of the teasers that we got leading up to this trailer, I'm like, oh, those are funny, those are cute. Stitch looks like animated Stitch, just furrier. But, we hadn't seen a ton. I mean, it was kind of similar to the marketing that the animated film had, that you didn't see a ton from the movie leading up. You just saw this little mischievous alien popping in and out of Disney characters that we know. Getting the full trailer today, I am shocked that I watched this. I'm like, that looks cute as hell. Like, I think that looks like a really, really fun family summer movie. And again, was not expecting to have this reaction at all. And it looks like they've pretty much done the thing that I really ding How to Train Your Dragon for. I'm like, this looks pretty much like the animated movie, but there's something about seeing this in live action that I feel like it is working for me right now. But I'm going to throw it over to you gentlemen first. Mikey, I know you got thoughts. You're our Disney guy. What did you think of our latest look at the live action Lilo and Stitch?
It's a tough call. It's a little bit like the first half of the trailer falls into the, oh wow, that is shot for shot. Like that alien being like, he took the red one. I'm like, the line read is the same as the animated movie. Like, it was literally shot for shot. And then once he got to Hawaii, there started to be a little bit more variety. Okay, like some different jokes, some different beats. It was like, all right, so this is a little bit different. It's a hard thing because I don't think this is going to be as good as Lilo and Stitch, the animated movie. Like, it's just not going to be as good. And I think every live action remake suffers from, you're making a version of something that is great, and the chances of you surpassing that are low. Even the live action remakes that I like, I don't think they surpass their animated counterparts. And so I'm watching this. I agree. I think Stitch looks adorable. I love Stitch. I think most people do. I mean, Stitch is easily one of the most popular characters that Disney has. So putting him in live action makes sense. The girl playing Lilo, I'm a little nervous about. Not quite sure she's going to be able to carry this movie with her CG buddy, but I can complain about it and I can say what I think isn't going to be great about it, but am I going opening weekend to see Lilo and Stitch? I obviously am. So that job well done, trailer.
Johnny, Ohana means family. Does it also mean a lot of money for Disney? What do you think of the latest look at Lilo and Stitch?
I think so. I'm surprised The Rock didn't get a cameo in this. But yes, I think this was a fun trailer, but I'm with you, Michael. The Leto actress, the little girl, I didn't find the magic or the charm of her that I would like to have seen with something like this. I did like the animation. I even think the mom who is taking Tia Carrera's role. I don't think even she was that strong in playing the role. So that's to me a negative. The sister. Sorry, the sister. So that's I've only seen the thing once. Sorry, guys. But so to me, that's the negative thing when I look at the trailers. The humans aren't as interesting or charming or fun to make me dial into this thing as much as Lilo is. So, and you got to buy the chemistry between them. I don't know that I necessarily bought it, although he had some funny moments. So we'll see. I like the change back to an alien and the little whole thing. That was a funny moment at the end there with the ice cream cone falling on the ground. So whatever. So I thought that was fun. Yeah.
Who knew that the iffy child actor and the live action adaptation of an animated film was going to get a fan out of this one and not these two? Lilo and Stitch comes out May 23rd. That brings us to our next trailer. This is our latest look at the studio. This is from writers Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg for Apple. This is their take on big studio politics. The fictitious Continental studio that Seth Rogen's character is on the precipice of taking control of. Anything that these two guys do, these two writers, the success to failure ratio, it's high on the success ratio. Has everything they've written done great? No. But these guys write comedy well, and this one absolutely made me laugh. It might be a little inside baseball for people, but Johnny, I'll throw it over to you first. I think you've actually maybe seen a little bit of this, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of our latest look at the studio?
I don't know there's much I can say because I've seen 5 episodes of the series. I hope to finish it in the next few days. I had to pause because Lady Outlaw's in LA and she'll be back tomorrow. So we're going to start up again tomorrow. But the trailer was great because the trailer conveys exactly what the show is about. It's very, very funny, but there's also some really sweet moments. There's some really moving moments, and amidst all the madness of it all. And for those of us who love movies, and I hear you, Shannon, it might be too inside baseball, but I think having Seth Rogen keeps it from being too inside baseball because everybody kind of loves Seth. And so he makes it a relatable show because we've all worked for jobs where there are crazy people who are our bosses, and we have to do insane shit to make stuff work. So I think that's the relatability of it all that the show really gets right. And surprisingly, him and Baron Holtz's chemistry is really good. Like, I did not anticipate liking Ike in this role, and I like him and Seth a lot. And they're great cameos. So good trailer. That's what I'll say.
Mikey, you've worked at a studio. Did the characters of Seth Rogen, Catherine O'Hara, Catherine Hahn, Ike Baron Holtz, is that what it's like to work at the studio?
Yes, it is. No, I mean, like what John is saying, which makes me excited about watching the show, because what I liked about the trailer is, what was that one that just came out on HBO? The where they're making the superhero movie?
Oh yeah, the franchise that got canceled. Yeah.
I watched that first episode of that, and I was like, "What? I should be the audience for this show. Why am I not liking it?" And it was a little bit too cynical. Like it was making fun of the superhero genre, but it didn't feel like it loved the superhero genre. It was like, let's just make fun of this fucking thing that we all have to go to the movies and see all the time. And with this trailer, it looks very funny. It looks great. It's like star-studded. It's exactly what you expect from an Apple show, and like just this stacked cast. But like within the crazy of how ridiculous the movie industry is, which is not an exaggeration, it really is that crazy. There was this little bit of like, but like, aren't movies fucking great?
Yes.
Like, isn't this crazy fucking town and all of the bullshit that we go through, we get to make magic. And that little bit of that trailer, I was like, that's why I think this show is getting all of the great early buzz that it's getting, where the franchise did not, because you watched it and you kind of came out going, God, maybe I should hate superhero movies. Whereas this one, you get to the end, I think it's Catherine O'Hara that's like, Seth Rogen's going crazy at the end of the trailer, and he's like, and then I do this, and I'm going to ruin this, and then this, and she's like, yeah, it's crazy. But then you make something, and it's good forever. Yeah. And I was like, this is going to be good. I am in on this.
Yeah. I excitedly tested you guys. I excitedly tested all the guys in our friend JG in our thread, because I'm like, you guys are going to love this. So yeah. Sorry, Shannon, go ahead.
No, I super enjoyed the trailer, and this one is coming out very soon, just in about 2 weeks, March 26th. And that brings us to our last trailer, something that we have waited years for. the latest look at The Last of Us Season 2 with the continuing adventures of Joel and Ellie. Look, this one came out. I don't think people were expecting a series based off of a video game to be as emotionally heart-wrenching as this show was, especially for a video game show that didn't have the most action. But when it did have action, because you care so much about the people that are involved, everything was just dialed up to 11, and it looks like the second season is going to be doing that in droves. Now, for someone that has not played the second game, I've heard a little bit. I'm trying to stay away from it. This one thus far looks fantastic, but I'll throw it over to you, gentlemen. Mikey, what'd you think of our latest look at The Last of Us Season 2?
I mean, they don't even need to show me anything. I'm in all the way. But it looks great. The trailer looks really good. I mean, the only thing I would disagree, like, I think anyone who ever played the games did expect a show based on this video game to be as emotionally heart-wrenching.
The people that didn't play the game.
But I'm just saying, I think that this is just a straight down the line example, and I think we talked about this a lot when we did our Last of Us reviews, is do they take deviations from the game story? Absolutely. Do they add things, tweak things, make stories and characters a little bit different? 100%. But they took the emotional impact that the story of that game had on people who played it, and they made that work in TV. And they didn't try and go, oh, it's just a video game, it's just this, like so many other franchises done. So given what they did with the first season, my expectation of season 2 couldn't be any higher than it is. And all of the trailers that I've seen, including this one, seem to confirm that my expectations, as high as they are going to be met. So like, this is premium television. I do love that in the age of all the shows that we get and all the streamers, somehow HBO shows still manage to have that, hey, this is HBO. Yeah. Like whether it's Last of Us or The White Lotus or anything, it's like there's a certain level and caliber of show that HBO still has this pedigree that you're like, all right, well, these shows are great. This is super fun. I'm really enjoying this. This is real TV.
I mean, especially for the shows that come out on Sundays. Like on Sunday, it's HBO Sunday night. It's not TV, it's HBO. Johnny, what did you think of our latest look at The Last of Us Season 2?
I thought it was great. I loved it. I just like you, Shay, I haven't played the second iteration of the game, but you got to one up, right? When you come up with a series like this, following up with a great second season is always difficult. And from that trailer, it looks like they've done so. And that teaser trailer already had me in. This one has me even more in, because what's the secret? What's the big reveal? Having not played the game, I don't know. But the fact that they're playing it up makes me very excited. More with Caitlin Dever is great. More with everybody involved, Bella Ramsey and Pedro and Gabriel Luna, more with him. I'm excited. All of it. And the Jeffrey Wright stuff, especially that dude chained to the wall saying you're going to lose. Oh, my God. That drove me insane, because, that kind of stuff, seeing the depravity of humanity in zombie apocalypse or in virus apocalypse like this, that's the stuff that is the real terror for me, seeing what human beings can actually do. And I think about that scene in The Road when they stumble upon the basement where all those people are down there. I've never gotten rid of that scene in my mind, and this scene had shades of that, and so that makes me know that we're in really great territory right now. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
And it's also set in the snow, which you're a sucker for. So The Last of Us Season 2 starts April 13th on HBO.
It's the weirdest kink anyone's ever had.
Anyway, all right, let's get on to this thing. So we got limited time here. All right, Daredevil episode 3, Born Again. It came out here. This one featured pretty much court stuff going on here with Matt Murdock defending Hector Ayala, a.k.a. the White Tiger, against these accusations that he killed a cop. There were some really beautiful moments between the two guys talking about the importance of heroism and what it means, whether you wear an outfit or not. But we also had shades of the Punisher logo being on some of these possibly corrupt cops. And so does that mean the Punisher is right around the corner? We also had a little bit more with Kingpin and Vanessa, but let's focus initially on the White Tiger stuff. So Michael, I go to you first. What did you think of the show overall, this episode rather? And then what did you think of how they handled the situation with Matt and Hector, leading to somebody wearing the Punisher logo, shooting him in the head and killing him?
The thing about this show, and the third episode is kind of, I'm on the ride. I feel like this show is not quite as good as I want it to be. There's always just a little bit holding me back, but broad strokes, I really love where we're going. Like the devil is in the details when it comes to Daredevil. And I think some of the details get a little bit sloppy. A couple moments, even though I like where we get to, I don't necessarily love how we got there. All in all, though, and I think I said this last week, as someone who's read Daredevil and has read Marvel comics for a while, I love a courtroom superhero debate. And I loved, I did not love, I'll just get to the thing I didn't love. I did not love Matt Murdock outing White Tiger without White Tiger's permission. I think that is 1000% something Matt Murdock would not do. I get why they did it for the drama of the moment. I get why they did the thing, but even when he says to him when they're back in the cell and he's like, "Hey, I'm just trying to keep you out of jail, man." I'm like, you have a secret identity. You know why he does it. This is crazy. Even if they had done something as little as him kind of walking up and kind of opening up the bag and seeing the amulet and kind of looking at him, and then Hector nodded his head and then he did it. Like, I didn't need a whole scene. I just needed that one thing. So that really irked me because I think that's out of character for Matt Murdock. That being said, once it happened, I loved how it turned the case. I loved having these people sit on the stand and talk about how White Tiger saved them and that this whole case became a referendum on vigilantes and vigilantes in this town. And then I loved how the result of that case fed right into Wilson Fisk, who is now mayor because he's running on an anti-vigilante campaign. So what I think the show is doing very well is leading into this giant debate about vigilantes, about like, do these people running around in masks in our city, like, do we like them? Do we hate them? Do they have a right to be here? And that combined with a clearly somewhat corrupt police force is really interesting because like the entire argument against vigilantes is if you really wanted to save people and do the right thing, you can become a cop. And all these people risk their lives every day. But we're sitting here looking at half of these cops who are corrupt. And you're like, the system's not working. We got a fucking criminal as mayor. So I think like the way that they got there and some of the details I didn't love, but I could watch Matt Murdock try superhero cases all day long and be happy.
Yeah, Shannon, what do you think of the episode overall? And then what do you think of what happened with the Hector Ayala storyline here and the interactions with Matt Murdock?
I mean, overall, I mean, I agree with Vogel that moment did feel a little out of character for if you are familiar with Matt Murdock from the comic books. But again, in a show that is an action show, to not have any action, I was thoroughly entertained. I mean, I think Daredevil should feel like Law and Order in the MCU. And definitely in the courtroom scenes, that was the vibe I got. I loved the confrontation between Matt and the cop in the bathroom, because at the end of season 2 or at the end of episode 2, I'm like, man, those cops seem like they did. So it's kind of like, okay, well, we know they survived. But just the interplay that they had, the back and forth, the cross-examination, having Nikki Torres, like, you know, watching how the cops tried to railroad the defense, all that stuff I really, really liked. I do wonder at the end if there was a better way for them to take out White Tiger. I felt like that was a little, it was a little convenient. And granted, you're on a television budget, you can only do so much. But literally, this guy who has this amulet who gives him enhanced speed and strength walks past the guy and just bang. Like, I feel like there should have been more of a to-do. There should have been more of a setup that he was trying to save, trying to get in the middle of some sort of distraction for that to play believably. Because knowing what the amulet does and knowing his history as a crime fighter, it's like, that seems really hard for me to wrap my head around at the end of this really, really intriguing episode. I thought Kamar de los Reyes. Yeah, Kamar de los Reyes. I thought he was fantastic. Like, and really, really sad knowing that, you know, he passed a little while ago. But seeing the humanity that he brought to Hector, I mean, I was fully on board. I mean, I think the Fisk storyline was not the most intriguing this time. They didn't have a ton of real estate devoted to it.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But the actual courtroom stuff I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I agree. I think the courtroom stuff works really well. But like the turns with Nikki, like the surprise that Nikki testifies that he wasn't on that platform, but the intimidation from the cops, you can understand that. Matt hearing them. So I like that they're exploring police corruption, police brutality in this city. I think that's an important element of the show to explore and a realistic thing to explore. The fact that they have all these tattoos. There's a lot of reports that have come out over the last few years about gangs within police forces. So I like that they're addressing that. And of course, it's meta because a lot of these people have taken the Punisher logo and misconstrued it so much or twisted it around so much that Marvel has given Punisher a new logo to carry around or to go to as a way to battle that stuff over the last few years. So I like that they use the elements of real world stuff here in this particular situation. But Michael, you make an excellent point. Matt violating Hector's identity like that without his permission was really odd. And I have to say this, for me, I don't like how that they killed him off like that. I don't like that we've heard the term magical Negro. They essentially magical Latino'd Hector Ayala by having him have this conversation with Matt, like, hey, got to be a hero, whether you wear the uniform or not. The calls, like, oh, cool, awesome. I'm going to go out right after I was found not guilty and get my amulet, then I'm going to get killed, and I'm going to get fridged in essence. And so to me, that was frustrating because he's such a strong character and Kamada delivers such a wonderful performance that you want more. Now, I know he's dead in the comics or something like that, so I understand, but I think he could have held on a little bit longer. And then, as you said, Michael, or Shannon said, I think some other way to off him that's connected to Wilson a little more obviously, I think would have been something more valuable. Having him save people, we don't even see him fight. Like we saw him in the camera on one convenience store, but we don't really get the weight of White Tiger. We don't really get enough time with him so that his death has real resonance and meaning beyond helping the white lead discover himself all over again to be Daredevil. And so for me, I thought that was a little unfair, but the stuff in the court was great. But I just think that what they did with Hector was frustrating for me.
I mean, I don't know that again, this is just another shade of our ongoing argument about the purpose of characters in TV shows. Like they wanted to do the story where a character who is a vigilante, who is outed, gets killed, and that is going to kick. Remember, like particularly because originally this was the end of the second episode, not the first episode. Like things got reworked, but like these second and third episode of Daredevil Born Again were originally the pilot and the second episode. Before
it came out today,
they went
possibly 2 through 6 is still what they had shot. That came out today, reports saying that, which if that's true, that's disappointing. But go ahead.
I think it is. But I mean, I think they got in there and like I think they went in to make the changes they needed to make, but there's parts of the stuff they wanted to keep. Like, and I think that again, all things being equal, this was a character that was supposed to kick things into gear. We are doing a story about how the city feels about vigilantes, Daredevil, Wilson Fisk on either side of this, whatever. I will say, and I think what I will give the show credit for is, I think the way he goes out, I agree with Shannon about the action level of it, but the way he goes out and the way he's treated as a character in the show is actually better than what happens to him in the comics. In the comics, he is also accused of killing a cop. Matt Murdock defends him, but he loses his temper on the stand and goes off and gets a little bit goes off the rails a little bit. And so the jury finds him guilty. And then when he's walking out of the court, he kind of loses his shit and gets shot and some stuff. But it's like he's a little bit more off the handle. I think they actually did use him and he was a really honorable character. I think they made him a really powerful character. I understand the whole magical Negro
come on
issue you have, but I mean, I think that I think he went out with more dignity and respect on the show than I think he did in his comic book arc. So I think in that respect, I give them some credit for it, while still being like, yes, you needed a character who was gonna die. Like that was what was gonna happen, and they pulled it from the comics where White Tiger did die after his court case.
It's just, you get exhausted seeing people of color die constantly for the white lead to find themselves. It's just so fucking annoying. And so for me, I've seen it for decades. And so it's just like, there's nothing new here. You had a chance to do something new. Pick another hero. But you don't have to have it comic specific or comic correct. Just pick another hero, have them die. Why does it have to be this way? Or give him more real estate on the show so that when his death does happen, it's much more poignant. And we have had enough time with him so that when the death happens, we're like, well, yeah, it sucks that it went this route. But we had like 4 episodes with this guy doing his thing and saving people, and where Matt couldn't do it. So in a way, it's like putting the pressure even more on Matt. There's just a different way you could have done it than just having him iced this way and serving the plot of the Punisher people or whoever they are doing this thing. So, yeah. What about the other stuff? As you mentioned here, Shannon, the Kingpin, Vanessa, this idea the Kingpin has designs on the Brooklyn neighborhood of Red Hook, their discussion over breakfast about crime, and then her kind of playing some cards here to try to still keep contact with the guys there who are in charge of the 5 families. Do you like this idea? Did you enjoy what was going on here, or is it just kind of not hitting with you?
It's just kind of stuff right now.
Okay.
You know, the hijacking scene, I was kind of like, oh, okay, where's this going? Guy immediately gets shot, and then we go to the breakfast table. It's like, hey, they're not behaving because there's no one there to keep them in line. I mean,
Right.
maybe if they had been able to devote a little more real estate to it. But as it stood, I was kind of like, I don't really care about this right now. Again, I think the show is at its strongest when Matt and Fisk are together. And there's nothing wrong with Fisk and Vanessa's relationship. It's just not, it's not the most dynamic, especially in this episode where the White Tiger trial was much more interesting.
Fair enough. What are your thoughts on the stuff here, Mike? Was there enough to even comment on?
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked it more than Shannon did. I think their relationship is really interesting. I kind of really dug a couple things. Like, I think I loved the scene at the breakfast table because it's clearly a Citizen Kane homage.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that, man.
It's obviously a Citizen Kane homage to have them, like, you have these 2 people that used to be so close and so tight, and they're at opposite ends of the table, they're at opposite ends of the screen, they could not be further apart from each other. And then I really loved that she sort of brings up this painting that's up for auction. And then he's like, oh, this painting. And she's like, oh, you remember it. And you think this is going to be this really sweet, this is what they love. She loves art. He loves art. And she's like, I could have laundered a bunch of money through that painting. And you're like, oh, fuck, she has gone down this road. Like, like, you know, like this is not the Vanessa. This is not the Vanessa and Kingpin relationship. She's been sort of ruined by the power that she's gotten. And this is driving them apart. So I thought this was a really well-written scene. And then just the entire concept, then kind of get into the next scene when they're in therapy, like, this whole idea that she's like, you know, they're gonna go crazy because there's nobody in charge, and I just did what I did to sort of like keep the peace, and that Wilson clearly doesn't want to keep the peace, that he wants the chaos, that he wants this, and then that she thinks he's doing it to sort of get at her for this affair that we believe she had with Adam, whoever he is, but that I think what's really happening is he wants to sort of, as mayor, he wants to see this chaos happen so he can come in and be the guy to swat it down. Like, I think he's, you know, like, I think that this dynamic between the 2 of them. So if he wants the chaos to happen, but she still wants to be the Kingpin, I think you are driving these 2 in a very natural way in a show where I think some things feel very forced, like the therapist, like Matt outing White Tiger, their relationship, and just watching it inevitably go where it's going, where there's no, you can't reconcile this. I think is really interesting, actually. Like you said, there wasn't a ton of real estate devoted to it, and it wasn't the most exciting thing in the episode. I think the court case was much more interesting, but I thought there was a lot there that they managed to get in little ways in the way they wrote the scene out and kind of using the painting and everything the way they did.
Yeah, I do like their chemistry, and I like that you got to give Kingpin some kind of kryptonite, and certainly she is that for him because of his love for her and the crazy stuff he has done. We've seen in numerous iterations of this relationship in order to save that love or keep her with him and or protect them in his own twisted mind. And so you have that element here. So have the Kingpin say, I don't know if I can trust you. You know, this idea of questioning even Vanessa.
I like it better. Every time you do it, I like it better when you do the voice.
You're just I know you're being sarcastic, but I like
it
was
like every time you do it, Vanessa. Make me an egg white omelet.
Egg white omelet. Sausages. All right, but then what about one last thing, Mike and Shannon as well? Right after, what about the Matt and Heather scene about Foggy? Is this working? Is this helping the relationship, or are you guys still not really on board with it? Go ahead, one of you guys go. Shannon.
I think her saying Foggy Nelson sounds weird.
Yeah,
like I wish she would have said Franklin. And Matt is the one who would correct her. Be like, no, he was Foggy. But that's just a little thing.
Okay. All right. Michael, is it working for you?
You know, I just find I think the actress is good. Like I'm not dogging on her, but I just feel like with everything that happened, you get to the scene where he's making dinner with her, and you know, like you've got the whole analogy that he loves to cook and Wilson loves to cook, and like a lot of the analogy, like my favorite part before the thing was like cutting from Wilson Fisk's bloody knuckles to Matt's bloody knuckles. I thought that was a really great transition. Like there were some really great moments in this episode, and she is not one of those great moments to me. I think that like this relationship that's there, I feel like she is a character that you can sort of see that, okay, well, she's gonna be Muse's therapist. She Wilson and Vanessa's therapist. She's dating Matt. She is a character that sort of is going to be caught in this web of things that Daredevil's going to have to help and save in some way. But like, she feels like a plot device, and this relationship is not a relationship that I get excited about. Like Matt and Karen, great. I know that Elektra is not the best part of the Netflix series, but Matt and Elektra had some great moments together, and the way she pushed his buttons was really good. And Heather's just like, cool. Like maybe her story is going to really kick in at some point, but right now she seems more like a plot device than a character that I should really invest in or care about.
Yeah, one of the things I said in my non-spoiler series review was that the show fails at times with the underdevelopment of character. I know you guys have heard me say that a million times, but like if you're gonna make this love, yeah, exactly. If you're gonna make this love interest important, then you've got to take the time to develop the connection. To me, from the beginning, I feel it got together way too quickly. The relationship is moving way too fast. And Matt, I think, would have done, as careful as Matt Murdock is, I think he would have done more due diligence on this. But then again, as you guys have said, he's a hoe. So maybe he's just having fun with the situation.
He is a hoe.
So we'll see where it goes. All right. Any final words here as we wrap up our spoiler review? Anything more you guys want to make sure we highlight or hits? I mean, there was a Officer Morales mention, so clearly
there was an Officer Morales mention. White Tiger did live with his sister and his niece, both of whom do become White Tiger. No, look, I think the show is at its best when it's really diving into what it wants to talk about, which is how New York City feels about vigilantes. Yeah. Like that in and of itself, whenever they're on that, whenever they're dealing with cops not liking vigilantes, but cops wearing the Punisher tattoo, like all of those pieces of it, that's where it really, really shines. Wilson Fisk being like, I don't like these vigilantes, like that's all great. And then some of the side parts, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, well, we'll see.
Final words to wrap up.
I mean, I wonder, like, I hadn't thought about this until you brought it up, Johnny, but I wonder, seeing as how the cops in the show have sort of co-opted that Punisher insignia, is this when the new Marvel Punisher insignia is going to be unveiled in this show? Is like Frank kind of reclaiming his identity?
I know John knows, so he can't say anything, but like, I wonder how Frank feels about all these cops doing what they're doing, because I think Frank Castle's going to be pissed. I think Frank Castle is going to be pissed about it. And of all the things that I'm scared about in life, and I'm scared of a lot of things, Frank Castle pissed off at me is like top of my list. But only John Barenthal, Frank Castle. I can handle comic book Punisher can get pissed at me all he wants. I don't care. But like that Punisher scares the fucking shit because he is crazy. You see crazy in those eyes.
Thomas Jane Punisher? Nah, that's all right. Thomas
Jane Punisher, he can yell at me all he wants. Thomas Jane, I don't give a shit. This Punisher, those cops better be careful.
What is that on your neck? What do you mean? What is that on your neck?
You can just see, like, I want to know this. Like, if there's a point where, like, Matt Murdock says something to Frank Castle where he's like, these cops, they got a tattoo. Are you working? They got a tattoo. And you can just see his crazy, be like, they got what? And like his crazy eyes go. Ooh, he scares me. Even the trailer for The Accountant 2, where he's as charming as he could be, he scares me a little bit.
What? I didn't say anything. I love that moment. All right, well, there you go. That's our spoiler review. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Geek Buddies. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, I'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's at geek_buddies. On Instagram, at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey.
We would also like it if you smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. Who do you think Sadie Sink is really playing in this Spider-Man movie? What do you think of the Superman movie? Is it going to tear down Warner Brothers? And what do you think of Daredevil Born Again? What do you think of the White Tiger reveal? What do you think of those Punisher tattoos? And what would you do if Frank Castle was standing at the foot of your bed and was mad at you? You tell us in the comments below. Go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments if you're listening to us on a podcast. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Go to the gym, Michael. All right, thank you all so much. Take care of yourselves. Be well. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of The
Geek Buddies.